Hey everyone, welcome back to Still Journeying. I'm joined today by a very special guest on a very special episode. Some of you who have listened to the early episodes might remember Daniel. Daniel, good to see you again and good to catch up after a bit.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on the podcast, Stephen. Appreciate it.
Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit and kind of just what you're currently up to and all of that?
Yeah. Hey everyone, my name is Daniel. I currently live in New York City. I'm currently the young adult director for a church in Midtown called Joy Manhattan Church. And before I came to New York, I was in Champaign attending CFC with Stephen for, I don't even know how many years now, but for a while now. So yeah, that's how Stephen and I met, and here we are.
Nice. And Daniel was my small group leader while we were in CFC, and
Yes.
we had a few years of that. I hope and pray that he doesn't reveal all the secrets about sophomore Steve to the whole group today. So good memories.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Today's episode is, Daniel, I reached out to you a few months back and talked about this idea, and we prayed about it and thought it would be good to actually kind of retrace our steps on our journey. We both obviously came out of CFC, and for those who might not know, CFC stands for Covenant Fellowship Church. It was a church that was in Champaign, Urbana-ish, Illinois, and there was a very large Asian American population there. I don't know what your estimate would be, Daniel, but I think it was like maybe 1,000 weekly who were attending the church. I don't know if that changed or shifted over the years while you were there, but that's what I remember.
Yeah, I think you have it about right. I think statistically, what I remember was, I don't know about Sunday service attendance, but just overall with people in our small group system and everything, I think we're close to like 1,200, if I remember correctly, at its peak.
Yeah, that sounds right. And that was just on a given Sunday, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, today we want to talk a little bit about our journey, like I mentioned, kind of the highs, the lows, the everything in between. I kind of want to start off, and Daniel, maybe you can kick us off since you joined earlier. When did you kind of start going to CFC? And how did you kind of end up in CFC and get introduced into the whole CFC network in a sense? I call it a network, but it was really just the church itself. And what was that whole story for your end?
Well, I started going to CFC just right off the bat when I came to the University of Illinois as a freshman. So from my high school youth group, there were people who attended CFC when they were students at the University of Illinois. So they told me there's a great church and to check it out and see what it's like. So I went, and I think for me it was really meaningful and special because it was an Asian American church it was filled with so many college students. People around my age were attending the church. As somebody who was coming from a small town where there weren't that many Asians. I mean, if I remember, my high school class was 195-ish. And out of the 195, I think there were less than 10 Asians in my class. So even growing up, I didn't have any people my age at church either. But then, yeah, just going to CFC and just seeing so many Asian Americans, man, like I felt so like empowered, and I felt like instantly felt this sense of belonging. So I think it just captivated me from the very beginning when I first attended the church.
Dang. And so you said that people in your youth group told you about it. How big was your youth group? And was that also like from just the town you were in?
Yeah, my youth group was, I think it was like 5 people. It's like me, my sister, and then like a couple other people. And by youth group, I mean, so there were people who went to University of Illinois, and then they were visiting the small town that I was at. because they're visiting their parents, and then they would tell me about their time at CFC, what it was like going to University of Illinois. So once they found out that I was going to the University of Illinois, they said, just check it out. It's great. You'll love it. And one person specifically told me, make sure to join FARPAR. But I did not. I joined CRH.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to the areas in a second. That's a whole other thing. So from my end, I grew up in a Chinese evangelical immigrant church. Um, that church had a bunch of CFC alum in like the English congregation. And in the youth group, our pastor obviously he was Korean, he never went to CFC, but he heard a lot about it. And my assistant youth pastor was a CFC alum. Um, it was so pervasive in terms of the CFC U of I pipeline that like in my head, honestly, it had just been spoken about and talked about to the point where it was like there was no other option in my head. I remember CFC had revivals every like October. That was the event that they called it. And I was one of those groups of high schoolers who would go with like my youth group serving body. Basically, they would just be, it was like this special thing that you'd all go down to U of I for one night. You would see this college campus. You would get to worship at CFC. And it was like, man, Jesus is alive. Like the spirit is working. Like the worship was, I mean, truly for those who have not been there, it was like concert level, professional level worship with these like crazy. I mean, even in my youth group, right, there are ways that that was influenced. Like, we had people jumping in moshes during our youth retreats. We had sermons or we had winter retreats where CFC pastors would come and speak. So, like, truly, we were just baptized in this, like, CFC blood before we
Yeah.
even got a foot into U of I. Like, it was,
Dang.
and our youth group was pretty big. So, the church, this was around when the church was peaking. So I think the English youth group was peaking at like 120 weekly. So we were pretty big for a Chicago suburb
My
church.
gosh, that's
I
huge,
know.
man.
It's pretty freaking huge. And I think our youth pastor had a lot to do with that. But because of that, like, these CFC pastors would come from Champaign, Illinois, all the way over, and they would preach and teach us. And, there are a lot of memories I have of high school that were formative. Like, I felt the calling to ministry. Well, I felt the calling to seminary at a youth retreat that a CFC pastor was preaching at. That was the first time I felt it. So there are like, before I even stepped a foot on a U of I. Oh, and in the midst of all this, my older brother went to U of I too. So like, there was just no getting away from it. The pipeline was set. Like, I was predestined
Right.
to
I
make
was
the
just
joke.
gonna say, yeah,
To make the
you're
joke.
predestined to go.
There was no
Yeah.
free will, man. There's no way that high school me would have ever thought any other choice existed. So uh, I ended up at CFC, obviously. It was like to the point where, I don't know if you had this, like people would tell me to live in Snyder Hall because it was a substance-free hall and it was holier to live in the substance-free dormitory. So
I
like
don't know, man.
dude, it was, I mean, obviously I still saw throw up from people who obviously went out to parties in the hall, but I definitely remember like people from my youth group would all pick Snyder because no one who is not a Jesus loving individual is trying to go to the substance free dormitory, and everybody would end up like in Snyder Hall together. So I
Wow.
was like in Snyder Hall with all these guys and girls who were from my youth group, and then we would meet other CFC people, and we would just all be together. Speaking of halls and areas, I don't know if you want to talk about it or if I should talk about it. Like, what the heck are areas and what was the whole point of that? Actually, I
Yeah.
don't know the question. Maybe you know what the point of the areas was.
I mean, I think on a simple note, it's because the campus was so big, they just divided our church into dormitory areas. So we had our six pack area, which we call CRH for Champaign Residence Hall. And then we had Far Park area, which held the 2 dormitories and the surrounding places, the Far Park. And then we had ISR. Wait, ISR was called ISR because Illinois Street Residence?
Yeah,
I
yeah, that
forget.
was it was literally just that one dorm and it was all like
Right.
engineers. That was the
Yeah, the
stereotype.
engineering squad. That's
Yeah.
right. And then we had ABLE. What did ABLE stand for, Steven?
It was like I forgot what the A stood for. The able people will kill me for that. Busey
Oh,
Evans
Busey Evans.
was
Oh,
middle one,
shoot.
and then there was an L for the hall. And I forget what
Oh,
that last
man.
hall
Dude,
is too.
I cannot recall for. Oh, wow. It's so long ago, but yeah. Man, dude, but when you're talking about the dorm, like living in Snyder too, sounds like you had all this like insider information on like how
Yeah.
to just have the best CFC experience from the start. Dude, I went in so blind. I didn't know anybody at the church. I was at TVD. For those who lived at TVD, shout out to the survival of the fittest. Dang, we survived. Man, that dorm was awful. Okay.
I heard that even in 2025, they still have TVD with no AC. Like
Dude, that's
every other dorm
crazy.
has gotten
Dude, we
AC,
visited
but
Champaign and when I saw the fans spinning, I'm like, wow. Bro, that can't be legal, man. How do you expect college students in 2025, 2026 not to have AC? Man, I remember just wanting to take buses in freshman year because buses had AC on, right? Like,
so did you like just sit on a bus for like an hour
dude,
to get
man,
AC?
all I know is I lived at my friend's dormitory, Illini Tower. Do you remember IT?
Dude, I don't think I remember it. Oh, it was a apartment, like,
It
or was
wasn't
it
an
a dorm?
apartment. No, it
Oh,
was
okay,
another
okay.
like residence hall, but it was like this like tall tower and they had AC. So every weekend, I would just pack up my bag and then just live there from Friday to Sunday night every weekend because I ain't living in like 90-degree weather with no AC in my room. You know, if you open the window, all you get is a hot air. Like, oh my gosh, it was bad.
TVD was an all men's dorm too, so it was extra dank. Oh
Oh
man,
man,
I
it's
people were going home to see families. You went to see IT for the AC. That's so funny.
but
Um,
yeah, back to the areas, right? Dang, we got carried away with the TVD. Anyway, yeah, the areas CRH, Farpar, ISR, and Able. And I forgot we also didn't we talk about like wasn't there a thing with like these 4 areas were like the 4 houses in Harry Potter?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. It was sort
oh
of
man,
like houses in the sense
yeah,
of
yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
personality fit one of the areas. So like I mentioned before, ISR was the engineers and the nerds. They're kind of like Ravenclaw, I guess. Farpar was like so CFC was Asian American, but a majority of CFC was Korean American in particular. Um, it was especially obvious when you were in Farpar because there were like entire small groups that I swear talk more in Korean with each other than in English, and like that was the vibe. And then Abel, shout out to all my Abel homies. I have nothing against you. I have friends in
Bro.
my church who went to Abel, but honestly, we just thought the Abel people were the weirdos and like they didn't fit in because they were like because the halls for Abel were like the fine arts, music, like performing arts, like sort of vibe, and that ended up, I think, the stereotype, whether it was good or not, was that they were sort of like the fine arts and the more unique or interesting um, sort of areas. And then CRH was kind of seen as like business majors because a lot of people were business. And then it was a mixing pot for the most part. Maybe I'm biased because we were both CRH, which stands for Champaign Residence Halls. And I think we came up with that acronym because everybody else was like outside of CSC calling it the 6 pack because there were 6 dormitories in like this one area. And there's like because 6 pack is like an alcohol reference, they decided to name it Champagne Residence Halls. That was like a rumor I heard at some point. This is totally unnecessary information, but I'm like I haven't talked about it in 5 years, so I'm rambling.
Yeah, no, I mean, you pretty much nailed it, dude. But I think it was so interesting that even though we are all part of the same church, just based on your area, which was separated by just the location of your dormitory and where you lived, like each area really had their own unique cultures too. And I thought that was fascinating too, like in a church, because where you belong to, like where you lived, your experience in the church was could have been just completely different. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, do you remember your like first event or your first experience? I know you mentioned about how like you're like, dang, there's so many Asian Americans, but like, is there like a story or anything you remember from that freshman year?
From freshman year, no, just even going to like large groups on Friday, um, just seeing so many people gathering at Falling Auditorium to worship God. And like you said, the worship team was so good. One thing I'll say is CFC's worship team was freaking amazing. Everybody was so musically talented, but on top of that, I really believe that there was so much spiritual power um, that was experienced through that worship team.
Hmm.
Yeah, again, it's just like from my experience of like five like Asian kids gathering for the youth group to seeing hundreds of people I'm worshiping God with on a Friday night. It was, I mean, I can't even begin to describe. Like, it was incredible to say the least. And it made me feel like being Christian is cool too, right? Like, there's so many people just like worshiping God on a Friday night instead of doing whatever other college students are doing. I was like, wow, being Christian is cool. And
Yeah.
it's an opportunity for you to make a lot of friends. And that's CFC strength too. Like there's such a strong community where even the church was big, just somehow it made everyone feel like they had a place in it too. Like, yeah.
It they did a really good job of like essentially running a business almost in terms of how they were essentially employing part-time college students. We'll get to that in a second. And like running like a volunteer based um conglomerate, and it was very, very well oiled. There was not a student who I feel like was left truly like unseen or uncovered. I'm sure there were people who slipped in and out who didn't feel like they were actually involved, but like if you went to all the events and talked to like people, I feel like in general they were really good about bringing people in and kind of creating a good community there. How many small groups do you think there were? Because obviously there was like each area had small groups. I remember, so we were in CRH 18 and
Oh my
they
gosh.
literally they categorized you by your number. So small groups would be assigned and then you would get your number and that number would basically be your leaders, aka the servants who were going to lead and co-lead your small group. And CRH 18 was our year because we were the literal like historically high 18. I don't know if there was an 18 before or after our year, but
Right.
it
Yeah.
was pretty crazy.
It was crazy because each small group also had about 20 members on the roster. So if you
Yeah.
think about it, just one area of a church, we had 360 people. You know,
Yeah.
that's, oh, and by the way, um, we gotta say the four areas were the college ministries. And on top of the four areas, there was also GBS for grad Bible study. And then there was AFM, which was the adult family ministry too.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, it was a
And they
massive church.
existed to Daniel because he was old enough to be in those, but they didn't exist to me because I was too young.
It's true for the most part. For most college students, it's just the four areas that exist to them, right? The four college
Yeah.
ministries. Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out my GPS and AFM folks. You are not forgotten.
Yeah.
Um, dude, we used to call them remnants. Do you remember that?
Oh my
We,
gosh. Yeah.
yeah, that was so disrespectful. Man, we really
Dang.
were deserving of smack in the head.
Yeah, as soon as
Uh,
people graduated and they stayed, we called them remnants. Oh man. I mean, I was a remnant pretty much, you know?
bro, I met you as a remnant. You were already a remnant by the time I met you.
It's true. It's true.
Oh man. They so with how big those small groups were, it felt like somehow you were still really plugged in. And I think it was the way the church was designed. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about now, and I know a lot of people might have actually gone to CFC who might be listening right now, but man, like 5 weekday morning prayers, a Saturday morning leaders meeting from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., a 9:30 service, a 12:30 service, a Wednesday night prayer meeting from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m., a Sunday night missions prayer meeting from like 6 p.m., I think, or 7 p.m. till like 8 or 9. And then you had like a Thursday prayer meeting. There's a lot of prayer. And
A lot of
all of
prayer.
that was not including the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday small groups that met on their designated day or the Friday night large groups that people would go to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's a part-time job, just attending that church, more or less.
Yeah, just attending the church is part-time job, but if you're serving in the church, it's a full-time job, man.
Yeah, let's get there. So, dude, I know we both were serving in different capacities. Can you just kind of walk through like, I guess, what you kind of did for CFC and what your role was, and then also kind of why you were so willing slash wanting to do the stuff that you were involved in ministry wise?
For the most part, the way I served in the church was leading a small group. Um, yeah, I think ever since I started serving my junior year as one of the small group leaders, I think that's all I did, just leading small group until I left the church. Like
That was like what,
10,
7 years of just small group leading?
yeah, I think so. I think so.
Dang.
Man, that was a journey. That's a journey. I also, oh yeah, I led the welcoming team. You're part of
Yeah,
the welcoming team, right,
I was
Steven? Yeah,
part of the
dude.
welcoming team. That's how I really got to know you first before,
Dang,
because I
dude.
was freshman year, second semester on welcoming team. They didn't let
Yeah,
freshmen serve in any teams until second semester. And
right.
then,
No, shout out to all the welcoming ministry people, man. That was fun. Man, dude, I can't believe welcoming team was like 120 people at one point. Dude,
yeah.
like that
What's
church was
welcoming
such
team? Just because I think when people hear welcoming team, they think like a dude stands there and like shakes people's hands and then they leave and that's like the whole description of
Nah,
the
dude, we're
job.
like a factory, right? Like, nah, dude, seriously. We had all these people positioned like as efficiently as possible so that when we have like hundreds of people coming in to the gymnasium, we could seat them as quickly and efficiently as possible. But also, we got to welcome people, right? Like, make people feel loved, make people feel they belong to the church. But that's part of it too. Sometimes I think we got too focused on the efficiency of the system and then all the bulletins we have to fold. Dude, I can't believe we had people show up to Sunday just to fold bulletins for like an hour, man. Like, and people who've been in welcoming ministry for a while, you know they're veterans because their folding was so crisp, right? Like
Dude.
every bulletin was folded perfectly. And then you had some of these newcomers come and we'd be like, hey, like we want them folded like perfectly. And they think we're like being funny. And we're like, no, like we literally want them folded perfectly. Like make sure the edges line up. Right. So and
I
then we have
mean,
to carry all the hymnals.
yeah, dude,
Oh,
the hymnals in the summer, these huge box bins. Dude, I only had to do it like once or twice a year because I was gone the whole summer. You were there like week in, week
dude.
out.
In like 100-degree weather, we're wearing full suit and they were carrying these hymnal boxes that were like so heavy.
The
Wow.
men were required to wear suits for Sunday service when they're on welcoming team.
Good
The
times.
woman like had to like cover up their shoulders, had to have dresses beyond their knees and no like open toe shoes, like all that stuff. Like, and I remember there was like a testimony I heard before where I think one of the pastors was saying like someone is like experiencing God through the bulletin folding, and they're they literally were saying like, oh yeah, like this person is just like, oh, I just feel so much of like Christ's serving character through folding these bulletins and
Dang.
experiencing God through like this unseen job. And it was like a sermon analogy about how we serve not to like be praised, but because God sees it, all that
Mm,
stuff. I think it's a good concept, but it's
yeah.
crazy that that was like literally what it came to. It was like, dang, these 1,000 bulletins being folded by like what, like 20 people, and not even 20 on like a given Sunday.
Yeah,
So
I think like 15 people or so, and we were just folding bulletins nonstop for, yeah, every morning on Sunday and every
yeah.
afternoon on Sunday. It's
Oh
crazy.
man. Oh man. What a memory. So why, I guess, what lead me up to that road, like in the transitory period? Like, did
Mm.
you want to do serving? Did you want to be welcoming head? Did you want to be a small group leader? Were you asked, or did you like kind of pursue it yourself? So on and so forth.
Yeah. I think that's something about CFC did so well, which I just don't know how they did it, to be honest. Like, it was a big church where you still felt you belonged to that church. And at the same time, you felt very empowered in the church too, where if you start to take on roles, like you felt you're climbing the corporate ladder almost,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 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 yeah. That's what I
Yeah,
was gonna say.
like,
Yeah.
and it gives you that purpose too. Like, the more you serve, like, the holier you are, right? The more you serve, like, the closer you are to God. Um, and again, because the community was so big, like, people who wanted recognition, right? I think it just somehow serving in CFC gave this picture that fulfilled people's heart, like whatever they were searching for. Like, oh, like through serving, I'll be more respected. Like through serving, I'll be liked and be recognized by more people. Like through serving, I'll be desired more. I'll be loved more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it just really, especially for like college students, like younger people too, who are still trying to figure out just what they want to do with their life. Like CFC gave such a clear purpose. They gave this narrative that if you serve in this church, if you do things in the church, like you will get what you're craving in your heart. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, I was very driven too. Like, wow, like if I serve, yeah, it gave me all these different lists of things to think about. Like, it does that mean I'm living for God? Like, does that mean I can be respected by other people? I'll be looked up by other people? Like all these like selfish motivators too, on top of just wanting to live for God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they created that corporate ladder. Like the CEO was Min Chung, and you bowed when you saw the CEO. And if you got to meet him once, you count your blessings and you come ready for like the meeting of your life, because this man was a celebrity who you could only pray that you would have the opportunity to encounter once in your life,
Mm,
one on one. I remember like seniors used to look forward to getting prayed for by him, because that was like a special privilege during revival that like the seniors would get from him. Um, and I also know like there was so much hierarchy. I mean, it could be the Korean culture seeping in there, but it was like then there's the pastors, all the other associates who serve the major areas and are kind of seen as like his right hand men. And they kind of were like seen in this like elite sort of way as well. And then right under that were like the like servant leaders, the guys who were like leading the servants or guiding the servants. So like honestly, dude, from the moment I got on campus, like the impression of Daniel Cook was he was like right hand man of the CRH pastor of like he it was you, it was Terry, and it was Chris. Like your trifecta was seen as like the three musketeers of the will of CRH, more or less. And that
Man,
sounds dramatic, but I genuinely think, at least in that snapshot, in that moment, that was how I saw y'all, and that was
mm,
actually how you were perceived. Like,
yeah.
not to say that you're like playing down your role, but like, dude, you were like kind of a big deal, at least in my eyes back then.
It definitely was hierarchical. Hierarchical, is that the right way to say it?
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
And I think, yeah, for me, maybe I'm just saying this because that's something I really strongly felt like just the sense of like empowerment. And the more you served, yeah, like the more you're just in a position uh, that elevated you amongst like sea of people.
Hmm.
I think that's what made serving so special, at least for me. At least for me.
Yeah,
Man, I think
yeah.
I'm being too honest here, but like that's what really drove me to serve.
Nah, dude, this. Hey, I remember my senior year, so I co-led my junior year, right?
Mm.
And senior year came around, and I remember back in junior year, like the question was like, "Oh, are you going to be asked to serve?" You don't just get to serve. Like small group leaders, I know this might sound crazy to some of you who are listening, but like I'm telling you, there would probably be like a line of hundreds of people who would be down to serve if CFC made it open volunteer. It was not open volunteer. You were asked, and you were asked based off of your recommendation from your manager, aka your small group leader for the year. So like D Cook was my sophomore year leader. That means that at some point or another, he literally said like, "Do I think Steven would suck as a leader? I think he'll be okay." And then he like put it forward.
I
Like
did.
there's
I
that
did.
whole I guess you did that process a lot, like that whole recommendation process. How much
Yeah.
does that just feel like a corporate managerial review now that you like look back on it?
Part of it I do think is important because you can't
Yeah,
just recommend anyone to lead small
yeah.
group because small group leaders play such a big role in the small group. And I don't mean just like leading a good Bible study per se, but their character and just who they are as people is the most significant ways that they will lead the small group. And in a sense, you represent the church and its value to the people in the group too. So I think
Hmm.
it is a needed process, but at the same time, it did feel very corporate too. And it's so crazy that in CFC there were so many people that wanted to like serve, that it was the church that asked people to serve, like people waiting, like, oh, will the church ask me to serve? Again, that added that layer of how special it was to serve. Like you are
Hmm.
special if you get asked to lead small group, right? Like
Hmm.
to all these people who are much holier than you, like you are recognized that you're good enough. I think like, especially Asian Americans, we crave that kind of stuff, like to be good
Yeah,
enough.
yeah.
So when you get the email saying like, hey, like, would you like to lead as a co-leader or like, would you like to lead as a leader for the next upcoming school year? You're like, oh my gosh, I'm finally seen and heard
Hmm.
for my faith by these people in the church. Like, oh man, the high is real, man. Dude, I
Yeah,
still remember like when I was asked to co-lead as a junior, oh my gosh, I thought I made it as a Christian.
yeah,
Like this
yeah.
is
You
it. Like,
you got your like tech job offer equivalent, but it
dude,
was
pretty
just for
much. That's what it
yeah,
felt like.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I remembered, dude, we had like those sophomore year, second semester. I forgot what they were called, but it was
Helpers.
basic helpers, bro. The helper role. It was like from freshman year. If you're like, I'm not joking, dude. I think I came into CFC with the goal of being a servant junior year. Like, it
Dude, me
was
too.
literally so deeply ingrained that that was like the aspiration you need to strive for. And like, I remember playing guitar and like helping swipe the leaders in for Eikenberry dining hall meals and doing all the right things. Bro, like it's crazy when you think about it. Like we were college underclassmen throwing ourselves at these like upperclassmen to show them that we were worthy. And if they
Yeah.
thought we were worthy, they gave us the rec and we were like, oh, it's so worth it. Oh, like, yes, we made it. And I remember like starting to help out in your small group second semester and being like, oh, I can smell it. Like it might actually happen. Like this is, again, if you're listening right now and you're judging us, like, I am so sorry that you're hearing this. But honestly, I think what we're really trying to get across is like, this is what CFC was. Like, we were seen as the darling child church of like Asian America. At least that was the impression we got internally. Like, we were the best church. We didn't say it, but we felt it. And being the best at the best church meant you were the best Christian. And I think that was sort of the way that we lived. And we were taught to live. So, I mean, yeah, like when they asked me, when they asked you, dude, was it even a question? Of course, I'm gonna do it.
Of course,
Uh,
man. We made it.
and
We made it to
the
the mountaintop, you know?
the the story I like to tell is I won't say who, but I remember there was this senior year moment where, because junior year you're a co-leader, but senior year you're the leader, and co-leader doesn't mean that you're splitting responsibilities. It means you're essentially the sub um report up to the leader, more or less. And
You're
the
like
whole
associate leader, right? It's like
you're an
senior pastor,
associate leader.
associate
Yeah.
pastor.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
senior leader and there's an associate leader. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was really hoping for that promotion senior year to senior leader.
Yeah.
They just called it leader, but co-leader was like seen as the bridge to leader. I remember I was so salty when they didn't choose me. Like I had like a week where I was just sitting there thinking about my life because I didn't get picked as a leader instead of being a co-leader. Like that was how deeply we were bought into this stuff. Like my identity was at crisis a little bit because the first thought I had was like, oh, but that guy got chosen. I'm holier than he is. Like, that's crazy that that's like the thought process that was essentially being fostered in CFC. And I don't know what you felt in that regard, but I definitely had moments of like comparing myself next to other people. It's like, oh, will I get chosen or this person? Well, I think I do more for the church than they do. Like, that whole servant model was truly just like a measuring stick, and it promoted like competition and hierarchicalism and elitism and almost like capitalistic like work hard to be seen as superior to each of the other people, if you will.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. It really is a game of comparison. You always think about, oh, that person was asked to do something. I wonder what they're doing right that I'm not doing. Um, and then if you get it, then you can't help but to think, oh, I must be better than other people, right? Like during my class, I think for sophomores, like my class was huge as a freshman year. And then sophomore year, helpers thing, yeah, like only so many people were chosen. And I really think every one of us, like we met together, like the sophomore helpers during our class. And I legit think we all thought we were the best Christians out of the whole group, right? We're like, we're the chosen few who the church deemed as best Christians. You know, like it's so arrogant, like so ridiculous to think about. But I can't speak for a group, Stephen. Let me just say I thought that, okay? Let's be real here. Okay? I
Yeah,
was
fair
like,
enough.
yeah, like, yo, we're like the chosen, like what, 15, 20 people out of like hundreds of people in our class. Like, we must be doing something right. You know, like again, like you feel special. You feel seen, right? In the midst of the sea of people. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know we've talked a lot about being a servant and the servant role and leaders and co-leaders. What the heck did that even mean in terms of a day-to-day responsibility? I'm gonna defer to you to describe this because you had many more years of experience in the senior role, unlike me, who only ever peaked at associate.
Let's see. Dang. It's so, like now that I think about it, it's so much. I can't believe we put that much responsibility on like college seniors or people who just started to like work. Like, I mean, every week, obviously, there is the one small group session that you have to lead, like Bible studies and such. But throughout the week, you're expected to meet up with people too. Um, and at least what I did is I always paid for my members when I met up with people too. So even financially, I'm like, oh my gosh, just the things I did looking back. Um,
It was
and
never explicit, but it was sort of expected, right?
right, it
Yeah.
wasn't explicitly stated, but the culture was that like the leaders are supposed to pay for their
Yeah.
members one on one.
I
I've
remember, oh, sorry. This is like freshmen would used to say like, "Hey, when am I getting my meal?" Or like they
yeah,
would say stuff like that because it was
yeah,
part of the sell of CFC.
yeah. Now some fresh would be like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to meet up with my leader. I'm gonna ask to for them to take me to was it Sakanaya?
Yeah.
Right.
Sakanaya, one good sushi spot in the
Yeah,
entire
no,
university campus, and it was like
yeah,
$50, which is so much back then.
right. So I think I try to meet up with one, if not two people per week, and it's over dinner usually. And then you had to have a prep meeting where you're preparing for the week, which would be like Monday or Sunday, depending on what day you led. And then there's an eval meeting after small group, which was
How
typically on
long
a
were those
Thursday.
meetings?
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I think I made my meetings too long. I think my prep meeting was like 2 hours, and then my eval meetings were also 2 hours too.
Dang.
Yeah, it's just the amount of time. And then Friday after large group, right? The thing to do was you're supposed to hang out with your small group till like what, like 11:30, like midnight.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
next day you wake up for the 8 o'clock leaders meeting that goes until like 12:30. And then after that, you go hang out with your small group again, right? Um, yeah, I pretty much lived at the dorms, because I was just constantly visiting small group members and stuff. And then
Yeah.
Sunday, gotta do welcoming. So you do, I mean, what I did was just welcoming. So like the 9:30 service and 12:30 service. And then the whole day's gone and you guys start thinking about next week. Like, what am I doing next week for small group? Like your life really just kind of revolved around the church schedule.
Yeah. And like people were in school. Like
Yeah,
people
people
were
whole.
holding jobs.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can only imagine, right? Like working a job and then like you go straight to small group and then it goes till 10:30. And then the next day comes around and you're going to straight to worship or to prayer meeting and then it's till 2 a.m.
Yeah.
If you were holy, you stayed till 2 a.m., right, D Cook?
It's actually 3 a.m.
3 a.m., my
3
bad.
a.m. Yeah, bro.
See, I wasn't holy enough. That's why I didn't know. But I mean, looking back on it, like what are your thoughts on that? Obviously, I think we probably wouldn't recommend that model to everybody, but like, what do you think was like the good and the bad and the ugly of the whole servant model or the servants meetings? I remember even now, I'm like, how did we spend 4.5 hours on a Saturday morning? But just like reflecting on that whole process.
Yeah, I'll start with the good. I
Yeah,
think it's easy to think about the bad, to be honest. So I'll start with the good.
yeah.
Our church was really driven by, I mean, there were many things that drove our church, but one main driving factor was the idea of denying yourself. And the verse Mark 10:45, for even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Like that was a driving verse for a church, I would say, where it's about serving.
Hmm.
And I really do think, just looking at my 20s and just the way I lived my life in terms of all the ways I served in the church setting, it did help me to, I would like to think it helped me to grow truly closer to God. Yeah, the idea of like how we were becoming more like Christ in our suffering and how we will know more of God in our suffering. And I do think it was exaggerated too much
Hmm.
to the point where I don't think it was healthy. looking back. But the heart of it, I think there is truth to that too, in terms of what does it mean for us to um, offer up our lives as a living sacrifice
Yeah.
and to really surrender and dedicate our lives to God. I think that is what drove so many people to serve. Like outside of like the corporate thing we talked about, the empowerment we talked about, like it wasn't the
Yeah.
only reason, right? I really think
Yeah. Yeah.
deep
Yeah.
down, we also really believe this is how we live out our Christian faith, which is to, again, we are the living sacrifice for God,
Yeah.
how we ought to die to ourselves so that others could live. And I think that is a beautiful picture of what Christ did for us. And it is something we ought to emulate, in our lives too.
Yeah.
Again, so the ugly side is I think that's like the epitome of what legalism looks like too, where so much of our understanding of who we are in Christ came from what we do for Christ. Um, Not that CFC ever preached in a way they talked about we have to work hard to earn salvation. I actually do think CFC did preach. When it came to preaching, it was really sound and solid that we're saved by grace alone.
Hmm.
I just think the culture that came out of the church, it made us believe that our entire identity and just our like who we are to God comes from how much we do for God. Like yes, we know we're saved, but our worth, like our true worth, comes from how much we do in church and like what we do for God. And I think that created such a unhealthy understanding of the gospel. I mean, this was a common thing. I think it says a lot. A lot of leaders, how we go on like winter break, like CFC goes on a winter break during the college winter break,
Hmm.
and then we come back and everyone's together. So many leaders would say, oh man, like, for the month, you know, I felt like I was sinning the whole time because I wasn't doing my prep meetings, I wasn't doing my eval meetings, I wasn't leading Bible study, I wasn't going to large group, and I wasn't going to all these prayer meetings. Yeah, I felt like I was just sinning the whole month. Like that was such a common saying
Mm.
where people would serve for like 20, 30 hours per week and then they would go on a month break and they come back and they feel this guilt as if they were sinning before God and that this idea that they're loved by God, this identity as people who are loved by God has been lost during that month of quote unquote resting and taking a break.
Mm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I remember freshman year. So we had One in Love conference, which was not
Oil.
officially CFC, but it was basically a CFC conference. And it would be an opportunity for other CFC affiliated churches to come in and join this like winter conference. And we had like crazy people if you look at the history of that conference. I think Francis Chan had gone. I think D.A. Carson had gone. We had like professors, seminarians, all these like people. The Lausanne movement was there. Like we had
Yeah.
crazy names all over the place showing up to these conferences for like college kids. And CFC was basically running that thing. And those are some of the most formative conferences of my life. But I remember freshman year, I came out of one. And I think the message I got in my head, I don't know which sermon or message nailed it in, but the message I ultimately came out with was like, oh, like to get more of Christ is to really just like live in his attitude of service and his attitude of closeness and like strive to be with Christ. And I think the way that CFC had deeply ingrained in my head to be more with Christ is to do more things for Christ, which is such a funny and strange thing now that I think about it now. Like I
Right.
came out of an entire conference that said, get closer to Christ, get closer to Christ. And I said, I need to do as much as I humanly can to be closer to Christ. And I think it was, to your point, that Mark 10 verse about to know Christ in his sufferings. And that was the ethos that was locked in my head. I remember for months, I would go to every morning prayer. I would go to all the different events that I could. Dude, I remember I had a spreadsheet. This isn't to preach my righteousness. This is really to say how deeply I'd bought into it. I had a spreadsheet of like all the people in my life who I divvied up by date of the week, and I would message each of them Monday through Saturday. And
Mm,
then on Sundays after church, I would go home and I would pray for every single one of them. Um, the whole list, and then I would pray for them like on their given day. And all of that, like, yeah, you could call it like legalism, but at the same time, like it was like I think we genuinely believed that we had more of Christ to gain. Like, yes, there was elitism. I 100% agree with you. Yes, there was all these other things that was like going on. And at the same time, I also 100% agree with you. Like, we thought we were doing it for God.
yeah,
We
for
really
sure.
thought this was all to glorify God, to please Him, to be more loved by Him, to love Him more. And like, all of that was just so deeply embedded into the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I I think we're kind of headed there, so I think we can probably start talking about it. When did things for you, because I think obviously if you don't know anything, there was a scandal that ended up happening with CFC. And that was ultimately why me and Daniel left the church. And I do want to kind of talk about sort of for you, what was your first exposure to all the things that was going on, or your first like, oh, like things might be unraveling? Did it start before news came out? Did it start from that moment? Or kind of just walk me through the story from your end.
Yeah, you know, I really didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
My friends and I, we were really talking as if we were gonna just be in CFC forever. We joked around saying how eventually we're gonna all get houses down the same street. And then once we have family, we're gonna invite each other for Thanksgiving and our kids are gonna get to know each other. We made all these like jokes too, but we're so invested in the church and we really believed in the church and we believed in the leaders of the church. I think that's important to note that we really believed in the leaders. And then just one night, an individual comes to talk to me and my friends. There's three of us, and then this individual came and talked to us and kind of gave us like something that he found out regarding what the scandal was going to be about. And my heart dropped, I think. Oh my gosh, after reading about and hearing about all these different scandals in different churches, like, are we about to be in one? Like, is this it? Like, I already fear the worst from the moment I heard this news from that one individual. And like you hear all this news about like scandals, but from what I see, it always blows up because the story goes like the leaders were confronted with these things and then they kept like fighting back
Hmm.
and then it just got worse and worse. So for me too, I thought, you know what? Like if the leaders just own up to it, like I'm sure many people will leave the church, but it won't like crumble um, to nothing either.
Was that like a decision you came to, or like you and the guys you were with came to, or
Just like a thought on my head. Like
yeah?
if we can be a church that is repentant, at least that's where I stood. Like not that everyone has to yeah, just if we can be a church that repents of its sin, I think it's a church that can stay at. That's that's a conclusion that I came to on my own for myself. Um and this is where everyone at the church will have different recollection of memories, different narratives, and just different views on how it went down, right? Everyone's experience was unique. So from here on, everything's just my own experience and my own perception of how things unfolded. And from what I've seen, I felt like the leaders were so resistant to people who were bringing it up, saying, "Hey, like, I think we need to go public with this information and just let the church know like this is something that has happened, and we're so sorry, and then there will be consequences to these things, and we want to make it right, like at least some sort of in some sort of that form or another,
Mm-hmm.
right?" But and I could live with that, and maybe some people can't, and that's okay, right? If they see that their leaders are in any sort of scandal, like they just can't seem to stay, and that's okay. I get it too. But at least for me, I thought, you know what? Like if leaders can again just like show heart of repentance and show that they want to make it right, then I can live with that. But from what I've experienced, I was met with so much resistance from the leaders of the church, and yeah, no sign of repentance, at least from what I remember. So eventually, instead of the church leaders announcing what's going on, so much gossiping happened and so many people talked, and then pretty much everyone knew what was going on in the church. And that it just made the leaders look that much worse too, like as if they're covering up stuff too. And yeah, people started to leave, people started to drop out of their leadership position. And then before I knew, again, like at the beginning of the episode, we talked about how just if you were to include everyone in a small group system, and if you take account for people who come to Sunday services, our church was at roughly 1,200. Again, like I could be wrong. It was so long ago. By the time good amount of people have left, and I was also considering whether I should leave or not, I think we're down to like 300 people coming out to Sunday
Yeah.
service, right? And that's
Yeah.
after we lost like our connection with other local churches. Like it was bad. It was bad. And I know I'm like summarizing a lot that has just happened, and just I mean this is like over a year of like what happened.
Yeah.
Um I think that's the conclusion that I came to too, where the reason why I left is because I felt like in the end the leadership did not take responsibility for what had happened, and I just couldn't get myself to stay any longer. So yeah, it's again, it was a church I really thought that I was gonna stay for the rest of my life. Like I really believed again, I believed in the church, what it stood for, and also I really believed in the leaders. And I think that's why it was so painful.
Mm-hmm.
Because in a sense, like I felt betrayed, I felt let down, and just didn't believe in the church anymore. And
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking to experience that. And it was really heartbreaking to see all the division that came out of the church too. Like
Yeah.
I really thought, oh, we're such a big church, but we felt so unified, right? Like there was such a strong sense of unity in the church where, again, like for me, I really felt like we were one family
Mm-hmm.
under God. But I think when the scandal came out, like different opinions started to form, and people were at each other's throat,
Yeah.
and it got so nasty. And yeah, just to see this church that you love so much just crumble before your own eyes, man, is such a painful thing to
Mm-hmm.
experience. Yeah.